wish I could tell you that my life started out normal. While I was growing up, I noticed that there were things wrong in my family. Dad would fight with Mom. I found out that I was not even my mother's child. I watched beatings and drinking and chaos. And I began to think that this kind of life was normal. My mom, or at least who I thought was my mom, left when I was 9. I think that's when the feelings of abandonment started. Dad was hardly ever home, and my older brother moved out. So I was pretty much left like alone. That's when I joined a local street gang, and I started fending for myself. I went through the foster home mill where I would be loaned out to different families for a certain amount of time until I finally got fed up and left. I really didn't know who I was or where I belonged in my teenage years. And so the only way I could release the pressure of abandonment was to fight. So I joined a local boxing gym. I got beat up quite a bit. After a while, my trainer Frankie said, "Boy, you need to get some wins under your belt." I said, "Frankie, what do you mean?" He said, "You just seem to be too scared to get into the ring and fight. The fight comes from within, boy." I lost fight after fight until finally I beat a boy in the ring. And then I won again and again until I started to get this cocky attitude when I got in, thinking I could beat up anybody. Fighting became a huge part of my life. And when I got caught committing a crime in my youth, I wound up doing a 1.5 years at the boys' camp for juvenile offenders for drugs and stealing. After I got out, I went to the old neighborhoods and started bumming cigarettes and sold them for 25 cents each. After I sold 3 cartons, I had enough money for a room, a bottle of booze, a steak dinner, and I got an apartment at 15, and I paid for it by selling marijuana on the streets. My social worker said, "You can't live like this." So I was ordered by the court to go to a foster home. The family I was assigned to were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the father was a bishop. It was great to have an understanding of how a functional family worked. They had great kids, who I called my brothers, and a mom and a dad who actually cared for me. I felt like I belonged. For that period of my life, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt safe. A 1 year later, I found myself serving a mission for the church in Denver, Colorado. After my mission, I got married, and I had 3 kids. And I started my trade as an electrician. I was awarded a contract for minority participation on federally funded projects, and I was doing great. But I wanted to purchase a home for my family. I couldn't afford it, so I went back to selling drugs. During the 1980s, cocaine was king, and I figured out how to make it and sell it. Unfortunately, that involved going back to the gang life. I was buying and selling from local street gangs, people who I knew when I was young. I started to see the power and money that comes from that lifestyle. I started using drugs again and became an addict. My wife eventually caught me rocking up 4 ounces of cocaine and took the kids and left. My whole life fell apart at that point. After she left, those feelings of abandonment resurfaced and I lost all sense of self-worth. I'm sure those of you who have ever been in addiction can relate. It's a lonely place, full of doubts and fears, second-guessing yourself. You don't think you belong anywhere. I fell into addiction in the worst way. Not only did I use, But I sold and helped peddle poison to people I didn't even know, not realizing that I was destroying their lives as well as mine. And it brought me to a dark and lonely place. I started to wonder why I was even alive and if God would even care. I felt like a grain of sand on the beach, not noticed, not cared for, not recognized, alone. I also saw people being brutalized over the drug trade. I saw people's lives taken. People fought over territory and power and money. In the corruption of addiction and in seeing power and money, you witness the loss of life. You witness the loss of freedom. You lose everything you used to take for granted. The more people died, you wind up thinking it's normal. You get used to it. It just became a part of the trade. You became desensitized. I've been arrested at least 40 times in 4 different states. Some of the correctional institutions can be very violent. Watching men beat each other half to death can take a toll on your psyche. There are 2 kinds of people in correctional institutions: predators and prey. I learned how to fight in the ring as a kid, but there I found myself fighting for my life. In 2014, I was at the county jail fighting a 15-year prison sentence. I was looking at a 2nd-degree felony, and the only witness I had on my behalf was a 19-year-old co-defendant who had just got released from jail and overdosed on heroin and died on his mother's bed before the trial. It looked as though there was nothing I could do to keep myself from going to prison for 15 years. I frequently prayed in my cell and asked the Lord for a miracle. I remember asking for the God of Israel to come and do battle for me because I knew it would take a God to rescue me. My cell turned into my sanctuary. I would pray, read scriptures, and have spiritual experiences, all the time surrounded by prisoners who didn't even believe in God. It was my only escape. When the other inmates saw that I was praying, they taunted me, saying, "Why are you asking for jailhouse Jesus to come rescue you? Man up, you're going to do 15 years. In the bleakness of the night, surrounded by concrete and bars, I remembered a dream I had years before. In my dream, the Savior came across a long beach, and he found me, and he picked me up with his 2 fingers and looked at me and called me by my name and said, "I remember you, and I'm with you." Those words gave me strength to fight another day. I also remember my trainer Frankie's words, "The fight comes from within, boy." Those of you who have been locked up know that the public defender does not come on a weekend, especially at night. But on a Saturday night, my public defender came and said that she got me into drug court. I knew that couldn't be right because they don't let people like me with violence charges and aggravated charges become candidates for drug court. As I walked away from her, she said, "It's a miracle." That was an answer to my prayer. It usually takes 9 months to graduate from drug court. It took me a year and 9 months. When I graduated and I got out, I had to pay $20,000 in restitution fees. I had to pay supervision fees. I had to pay urinalysis fees and drug court class fees, all at the same time making a small, meager salary by stacking chairs at a local convention center. I barely had enough to eat. I dreamt of being able to one day be able to buy a pair of sneakers, but I kept fighting. I started going to recovery classes, and I kept going to church. I was finally on the road that looked like I had possibly a bright future. On that journey, I met my future wife, who was battling her own addiction. We spoke about recovery, and she was willing to try. It took a lot of visits to the methadone clinic nearly 2.5 years. She finally kicked her habit. Now, we've been addiction and recovery missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for the past 4 years. Looking back, I never thought I would be where I am today. I can sometimes easily fall back into the poor me syndrome, but Christ keeps me afloat in the storms of my life. I wish I could tell you we have a perfect and happy ending, but we still struggle. But through it all, the Lord has never failed to help me in all of my trials. It's been a win. Frankie was right. All I needed was enough wins under my belt to come out victorious. Let me tell you, it's been a long, hard battle, and mostly uphill. It doesn't get easy overnight. It took a lot of commitment, a lot of praying, a lot of begging for help that allowed me to finally have the hope sufficient enough to carry me through to where I am now. I never stopped going to meetings. I never stopped praying. But most of all, I never stopped serving others. As long as I offered to help someone in need, as long as I kept encouraging those who suffer to keep up the fight, as long as I kept going to work, I continued to have the hope I needed to win. Now, after 8 years, I have quite a few wins under my belt. For those of you who are still suffering with addiction, for those of you who still are fighting an uphill battle, for those of you who are struggling with hope, rest assured, help is on the way. Jesus is in the ring with you and with me. He says, quote, "Fear not, it is I. Be not afraid."